मीडिया के इस तरह के इवेंट्स होते रहते हैं।
Hello and welcome, I'm Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump has described his second UK state visit as one of the greatest honors of his life during a banquet at Windsor Castle hosted by King Charles III. He spoke of the unique and enduring bond between the US and the United Kingdom, likening their relationship to two harmonious notes in a chord. Meanwhile, today marks the US President's second day in the United Kingdom. Jimmy Kimmel's late-night show has been suspended indefinitely by ABC after the host faced backlash for comments about the motives behind the killing of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. ABC confirmed that Jimmy Kimmel Live will be removed from the airwaves for an undisclosed period. A gunman opened fire on 5 police officers in Pennsylvania, killing 3 and seriously injuring 2 others before being killed at the scene. The officers were responding to a domestic violence investigation when they were ambushed. Now, State Police Commissioner Christopher Paris has confirmed that the deadly attack resulted with 2 officers being in a critical condition in a hospital. US President Donald Trump has announced new action against left-wing groups following the killing of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, specifically targeting the anti-fascist movement Antifa by designating it a terrorist organization. Trump has stated that he would recommend thorough investigation into those funding Antifa, urging adherence to high legal standards. According to health authorities in Gaza, the death toll has now surpassed 65,000, with nearly 166,000 others injured since the conflict commenced on the 7th of October 2023. Meanwhile, in the last 24 hours alone, hospitals in Gaza received 98 dead bodies and 385 injured individuals. And we're also now learning that 7 have been killed and 87 have been wounded at food distribution sites. Additionally, the Gaza health authorities have reported 4 more deaths linked to famine and malnutrition, bringing the total to 432. Iran has expressed its readiness to reach a fair and balanced solution with European powers regarding its nuclear program. This is following talks with Britain, France and Germany. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has emphasized that the solution should serve mutual interests and requires an independent approach by European countries. He also called for European nations to avoid external influence as they work towards a resolution. A Louisiana judge has ordered pro-Palestinian protest leader Mahmoud Khalil to be deported to either Algeria or Syria for failing to disclose information on his green card application. Khalil, a legal permanent resident in the US, claims that this is retaliation for his political activism, particularly his role in pro-Palestinian protests. Now, despite being detained for 3 months, earlier this year, he remains at the risk of deportation following this court's decision. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has been diagnosed with skin cancer after undergoing surgery to remove skin lesions. Now, 2 of which tested positive for squamous cell carcinoma. The 70-year-old was discharged from a hospital after a brief overnight stay for other medical issues. Bolsonaro's news regarding his health comes just days after he was convicted for leading an attempted coup. All right, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. US President Donald Trump has praised what he calls irreplaceable and an unbreakable bond between the United States and the United Kingdom. This praise has taken place during his second historic state visit to the UK. Now, speaking at a lavish banquet at Windsor Castle, Trump has said the following.
The bond of kinship and identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It's irreplaceable and unbreakable, and we are, as a country, as you know, doing unbelievably well. We had a very sick country 1 year ago, and today, I believe we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. In fact, nobody's even questioning it, but we owe so much of that to you and the footing that you gave us when we started. Together, we've done more good for humanity than any two countries in all of history.
Meanwhile, King Charles in his speech echoed this sentiment. Listen in.
This unique and important occasion reflects the enduring bond between our two great nations, anchored by the deep friendship between our people. This relationship, which, with good reason, we and our predecessors have long called special, has made us safer and stronger through the generations.
Amid royal pageantry, Trump and Melania were treated to a grand military welcome, a carriage procession, and visits to significant royal sites. Now, this high-profile visit also saw a focus on trade and geopolitics, with discussions on investment, Ukraine, and global security set to continue with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. With us on the broadcast is Ms. Irina Zuckerman, senior journalist, joining us from New York. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Donald Trump's historic second state visit to the United Kingdom. Last time he went there, he was hosted by Queen Elizabeth II. Now he's being hosted by King Charles III. He is, of course, stressed upon the bonhomie between the UK and the US as well. Meanwhile, talks all set to be held with Keir Starmer. Trade is in focus. Geopolitics, particularly the Ukraine situation, is also in focus. What are your expectations from the meeting that is slated to take place?
Thank you so much. Of course, the visit so far has been very important. The meeting with the king was rare, as Donald Trump has mentioned before, but the economic and security deliverables and discussions have been and continue to be no less important. That has so far included an £100 billion inward investment tally linked to the visit, including data center discussions, logistics, life sciences, and advanced manufacturing projects. There's a discussion of a tech prosperity deal, which is essentially a bundle of private sector commitments in AI, cloud, quantum, and civil nuclear energy, which is headlined by Microsoft's £22 billion UK build-out, including an AI supercomputer, NVIDIA's large GPU deployment, and Google's commitment to investing into the data center. These are important for the UK in terms of jobs and growth optics, but also equally important for the United States in terms of its strengthening of relations with the UK. So the reason for this heavy emphasis throughout the talks on the tech sector is that it represents a growth strategy that would differentiate UK from EU-style digital regulation, and while courting US firms. At the same time, it allows Trump to showcase American corporate muscle abroad without essentially touching on a potential controversy about a full trade deal. It helps lock the UK deeper into a US-centric compute, cloud, and AI supply chains, including with implications for energy demand, such as the data center, power planning policy, and digital sovereignty, all key themes for both countries. So far, there is and will continue to be a heavy emphasis on the special relationship. There's also a lot of concern about support for Ukraine, continuity on AUKUS, which has been in the headlines recently with Australia announcing an $8 billion commitment and allowing US to access its facilities related to the storage of equipment, And the message has been the key theme that we are seeing is steadiness, not novelty. London is trying to reassure allies and investors while avoiding clashes over areas of divergence such as tariffs, green policy, and migration, which has caused controversy with other Trump officials in recent past. We are also seeing, and we will continue to see for the remainder of the visits, heavy emphasis on optics management. There are protests and culture wars messaging going on the outside the main theater of events, but overall the staging, the largest ceremonial welcome in years, uh, appearance of multiple tech CEOs at the banquet is keeping the media focused on the economic storylines. For Trump, this visit is reinforcing the idea of respect abroad. For Starmer, it softens the domestic critique that he's hosting a polarizing U.S. president by showing concrete investment wins. Now, what is real in all these meetings versus what is rhetorical and symbolic commitments? So many of the pledges we are seeing are multi-year. They will depend on planning approvals, on grid connections, and on macro conditions. Still, there is a lot of push to advance the UK as US tech hub thesis, meaning the compute capacity, AI, R&D, semiconductor adjacent infrastructure, all key to US interests, and quietly reaffirms defense cooperation, even though the comprehensive tariff cutting trade deal that the UK is anxious about remains elusive. The bottom line to all of this is that UK is banking on major commitments and wants to develop a brand as America's preferred AI outpost in Europe. And there is an effort to keep the relationship warm, pro-Ukraine, and AUKUS affirming without getting too much into the thorns of divisive issues. We will see a lot of in the last day of the visit working group meetings, site selections, grid capacity discussions, stills pipelines discussions how to make sure that there are enough people who actually can undertake all these commitments, and of course the discussion of joint research ties and the running argument in London about data center sprawl versus growth. So all of these technical issues will be left for the last day of the visit.
All right, ma'am, I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking further developments this time from the United States of America. We're now learning that Walt Disney-owned ABC has announced that it will indefinitely suspend airing Jimmy Kimmel Live after the late-night host made controversial comments about the killing of Charlie Kirk, drawing severe criticism from the head of Federal Communications Commission. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has praised ABC's decision, stating that the network has finally had the courage to do what needed to be done. This move also follows the abrupt cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and which was another popular late-night show criticized by Donald Trump. The cancellation has come days after Colbert had publicly criticized his parent company's settlement with Trump over what he called was a frivolous lawsuit related to a 60-minute interview with Kamala Harris. Now, according to reports, some Democratic lawmakers have condemned the move by ABC, arguing that it constitutes an attack on free speech. Meanwhile, fans of Jimmy Kimmel Live have gathered outside the El Capitan Entertainment Center in order to protest ABC's decision to pull the show off air. Listen in.
It was like the show was about to start in like 45 minutes and we were still like all outside. So it was very like suspicious that something was going on, but we didn't know what it was. So after like around 3:30, someone just came outside and he said like, you know guys, we're really sorry for today, but the show is canceled.
Any show that's on TV that speaks out against Donald Trump, he's trying to shut down, and we're not losing our right to watch what we want to watch, but we're losing our freedom of speech. You know, I mean, this is something that happens in, Russia and North Korea and China, state-run TVs, stuff.
I was actually just walking up the road here to try and find out what was going on with the show. I was attempting to get tickets, and I found out that it had been canceled indefinitely over some things that were said regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination.
I did. I'm devastated. I'm really upset. I'm really upset. This is free speech. We are supposed to have free speech in this country, and this is not free speech. He didn't say anything wrong.
Pressures from pro-Trump political groups, the network acted in advance of the coming wave of pressure at these first and early signals to protect its own interests. Now, the irony here is that Kimmel was by far one of the milder commentators on what has occurred. He did not celebrate the assassination. He didn't even directly talk about Kirk himself. He talked about the murderer, and he also talked about how some people inside the MAGA movement, the pro-Trump people, are using this situation opportunistically to score political points. And as far as most people see, criticizing political movements falls within purview of acceptable political speech. It has nothing. It's nothing provocative or incendiary or something that could be interpreted as a call or for violence or an excuse for violence. So clearly, there's a lot of. This is more about political sensitivities than any real legal controversy here. So, of course, there's a very clear divide here. The Kimmel's defenders are framing this as political speech being chilled by government-adjacent pressure. ABC claims its platform governance under commercial and standards obligations. But what makes this moment particularly combustible among this fraud debate is that senior federal officials are now publicly weighing in on media contacts, while approvals and licenses sit on their desk. So that actually gives the most ground to back the First Amendment tinged arguments. Even if the immediate terrain is contractual, dealing with affiliate agreements and content policies rather than constitutional. So what does that mean for the future? If the suspension of the program stretches, ABC has to fill a nightly hour with repeatable inventory, such as game shows, reality TV, or news magazine blogs, while deciding whether to reinstate Kimmel with conditions or an apology, whether to seat rotating guest hosts, or to retool the show with a new anchor, or to pivot the slot entirely. Advertisers hate uncertainty. That alone argues for a time-boxed review and a clear path. One reason trade outlets read the move as more than a weekend pause, and for the creators and critics, the practical lesson here is less about what you can say than how quickly distribution can collapse when affiliates bolt and regulators decide to grandstand and posture. The safer harbor they will see in the short term is streaming on studio-owned platforms, though those bring smaller linear ad dollars. If Kimmel does return, there will be tighter standards on language and pre-tape guardrails. If not, ABC will likely be testing lower risk, high commerce format in the slot. So what we are seeing is that indefinite suspension functions essentially like a soft cancellation unless ABC ends up setting terms and a date for return. So the risk just proves to be too much, and even if the government is not directly demanding the cancellation, the political atmosphere and the subtle pressure indicate are being read by ABC as indicia to make that move to protect themselves.
All right, ma'am. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time speaking to us all at NewsX World. We are shifting focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that 3 police officers have been killed and 2 others seriously wounded after a gunman opened fire on them in eastern Pennsylvania. Now, this incident took place in Codorus. Now, this comes after the Colorado and Charlie Kirk shootings. The officers were responding to a domestic violence investigation when the suspect ambushed them. Take a look at what State Police Commissioner Christopher Paris has said.
The incident occurred in Codorus Township, York County. I'd like to preemptively say that there are many details which at this point we are not prepared to release given the ongoing nature of the investigation. That having been said, we would like to advise the community that there is no current active threat. The situation today involved law enforcement officers who were shot. I can confirm that the shooter is dead. I can confirm that there were 5 law enforcement officers who were shot today. 3 fatally, 2 that were transported here to Wellspan in York. They are currently listed in critical but stable condition.
Authorities have assured that there is no ongoing threat to the public. Governor Josh Shapiro has called the incident absolutely tragic. Listen in.
This is an absolutely tragic and devastating day for York County and for the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We grieve for the loss of life, for 3 precious souls who served this county, served this Commonwealth, and served this country. This kind of violence isn't okay. We need to do better as a society. We need to help the people who think that picking up a gun, picking up a weapon is the answer to resolving disputes. We need to do better when it comes to mental health. We need to do better when it comes to looking out for those who are in need so we don't have to deal with tragedies like this.
Shifting focus to more updates coming in from the United States, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced plans to designate the left-wing Antifa as a terrorist organization following the killing of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. Trump took to Truth Social saying that he would recommend investigations into those funding Antifa. However, it remains unclear how much weight this designation would carry, as Antifa is a decentralized group without any clear leadership. Now, despite the lack of evidence linking the accused Tyler Robinson to any political group, Trump and others have blamed left-wing groups for fostering hostility towards conservatives. Critics, meanwhile, argue that this move could be an effort to target political opponents in particular. Trump's previous attempt to designate Antifa as a terrorist group in 2020 was met with legal challenges and concerns over free speech. With us on the broadcast is Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goyal, former Indian diplomat. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Interesting bid by Donald Trump to designate, in fact, Antifa as a terrorist organization. He tried to do so back in 2020 as well, when a protest had swept across the United States of America after the death of George Floyd, and he's attempting to do so once again. Do you foresee a legal battle, a prolonged legal battle, if he tries to do so again?
I don't know really, because I'm quite certain that there are people who will oppose it, they will go to the courts. But that's something really which the US politics will have to deal with. We do expect that there would be some kind of a disturbance or problem, but I'm sure that President Trump, by banning Antifa, he is prepared to take on the political battle and the legal battle if there is one. I will just leave it there myself.
All right, sir. Stay on with us as we track further developments coming in. We're now learning that Iran has expressed its readiness to reach a fair and balanced agreement with Britain, France and Germany over its nuclear program following recent talks. In a statement, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has emphasized that any resolution must prioritize mutual interests and be reached through a responsible, independent approach by European powers. He has urged the 3 countries to avoid external pressure and remain focused on achieving a constructive solution. This comes amid the E3 nations' snapback sanctions on Iran, reiterating that Iran should never seek, acquire or develop a nuclear weapon. Still with us on the broadcast is Ambassador Suresh Goyal. So, interesting development coming in from Iran, which is now signaling readiness for a solution on the basis of its nuclear program. We do know that earlier talks had broken down with the United States. The E3 powers then stepped in after the US had struck 3 Iranian nuclear sites. but somehow the talks were also not really fructifying into any concrete solution, which resulted in threats of snapback sanctions. Now it seems Iran has stated that it is ready to finally reach an agreement. What do you see happening in the near future? By when could such an agreement catalyze, and what could be some of the salient features that the E3 powers will be looking to put forth in it, and Iran will also be looking to place?
There are 2 or 3 things which I think are going to be unchangeable or could really remain on the table despite whatever positive signals we see coming from Iran and the readiness of E3 to talk to Iran. Now, when Iran says fair, balanced solution, nuclear solution to the whole issue, we do not know what their idea of the fair and the balanced solution would be really. At the same time, the E3 also will be looking at what the USA is doing, because in many ways, any kind of a nuclear deal with Iran will be influenced, if not guided, will be influenced by USA approach. And this case, we know that USA is very difficult in terms of the nuclear program that Iran is carrying on. At the same time, to expect Iran to give up on its enrichment program, which actually is not really creating the weapon-grade uranium, but very close to it, I don't think that Iran will be prepared to give up on that option. So this is interesting development. Iran is suffering from the sanctions. Its economy is suffering. At the same time, Europe, if they stop buying oil and energy from Russia, they have to look for options. And Iran is a very, very useful source of energy for Europe. So it's an interesting development. Can't really speculate. So let us see what happens. My suspicion, my guess is that European nations might be able to accommodate Iranian sensitivities on the issues.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us. We're tracking now further developments coming in from the Middle East. We're now learning that Gaza-based health authorities say that the death toll in the Gaza Strip has now surpassed 65,000. They've also reported that 98 people have been dead, including 7 aid workers, and over 300 injured and wounded who were taken to hospitals in the last 24 hours. Moreover, 4 more people, including children, have lost their lives from starvation, taking the total death toll from malnutrition to over 400. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have struck Gaza City more than 150 times in recent days, toppling high-rise towers which they claim were used by Hamas to monitor troops. Now, amid this escalating violence, Palestinian Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Wasin Agabekian Shaheen has now spoken on the importance of recognizing a Palestinian state. She has stated that the move sends a clear message to Israel on the futility of its occupation and that recognition gives Palestinians hope for statehood. Listen in.
Every bit counts. We cannot negate the fact that recognition brings us closer to actual materialization of the state, but we also need to work on the permanent ceasefire and work on the other aspects that need to take place so that people see a future in Palestine. Things will not stay as is forever, especially with the momentum that is created with countries like France, Canada, Australia, Britain coming forward with the recognition. I think this is a game changer, and as such we need to look at it positively and continue moving forward. What has happened since we embarked on this peace process and onwards is that we've seen more of our land annexed by Israel, more settlement activities, more violence by settlers, and more suffocation of our life. We will not take this any further. We are just asking for our right as enshrined in international law.
Ambassador Goel still with us on the broadcast. Tragic updates coming in regarding the death toll mounting. Meanwhile, we've heard what one of the Palestinian leaders has had to say. She's of course pointed out the fact that France is slated to move a resolution at the UNGA very soon. We've seen other countries, including the United Kingdom, Belgium, even Australia, expressing the fact that they will be recognizing a Palestinian state in the next few weeks itself. But do you think, even if this recognition does take place, it is more symbolic because it's the UNSC that truly has the final say of what goes on the ground, where the United States, which has consistently been backing Israel, has veto powers?
Absolutely. Even though in terms of recognizing a country as a state on international law requires the Security Council to vote in favor, General Assembly adopting such a resolution as it has done before also does create a lot of political pressure on the international community to act. The two-state solution is the only way that you can have permanent, durable peace in the area. Unless there are these 2 million Palestinians, where are they going to go? I think one has to really think about it. And what is happening in Gaza is a human tragedy which has surpassed everything that I've seen before. So the situation is complicated. Recognition by France, Germany, etc. is going to create pressure, but I think what is required is really finding a solution which will accommodate the two-state solution and has the acceptance of Israel, USA, and the other prominent international actor. That looks rather impossible today at the moment, very difficult. So very grim situation, and I don't really see an end to it.
All right, sir. With that,
Yes.
I would like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective, your analysis on NewsX World today. With that, viewers, due to paucity of time, it's a wrap on this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.